On infrequent occasions, rough dealers offer preformed gem rough for sale. A while back, one of my favorite rough dealers, Matthew M., offered a small lot of preformed Aquamarine for sale. The quality, color, and price were all good, so I bought the lot. Now with preforms, you can expect a lot less loss of rough when you're cutting, or basically a higher yield, as the stone is already in the general shape of what you'll be cutting. So when you're looking at an opportunity to buy a preformed gem rough, if the price is about the same as other non-preformed rough of the same gemstone, in this case aquamarine, it's normally a bargain to pick up the preformed rough because, again, you'll get a higher yield. But you need to be careful, as sometimes the rough seller or cutters, the original cutters, they'll see a problem when they get a bunch of their rough preformed. They'll see problems in the rough, so instead of cutting a flawed stone, they just sell the rough off as preformed. So you got to be careful. But again, Matthew's a very reputable rough dealer, so I didn't have that problem. But we'll see. So let's talk about the color of aquamarine gems. According to the Gemological Institute of America, or GIA, aquamarine's color range is very narrow. Aquamarine can be blue, very slightly greenish blue, very strongly greenish blue, or green blue. The gem's most valuable color is a dark blue to slightly greenish blue with moderately strong intensity. So in general, the purer and more intense the blue color, the more valuable aquamarine is. So what you see on the market is that most aquamarine is light greenish blue. Basically, the color of aquamarine, basically in two categories. The first is base blue with green highlights, and second is base green with blue highlights. So from what I've seen, yes, I agree, the most popular color for consumers is the kind of base blue or blue-green color. A lot of aquamarine comes out of the ground already in this blue-green color, but because of its popularity, a lot of the green-blue aquamarine is heat-treated to make blue the dominant color. And thus, the blue-green color is what most consumers associate with aquamarine. However, there are a lot of consumers who prefer the natural green-blue, kind of seafoam green-blue aquamarine like this piece is. And one advantage that you have when you have the green blue aquamarine is that you know it was not heat treated. It came out of the ground this way. Not saying all blue green aquamarine is heat treated, it's not, but some is. So if you've never seen this color of aquamarine before, here it is. So this rough has been preformed into a square shape. So to maximize the yield of this rough, I need to pick a square shaped design. So I went back to that large library of gem cutting diagrams at facetdiagrams.org and looked through square designs, or in this case, square emerald shaped designs. When selecting a shape, which I know has a lot of designs, such as square emerald, I go ahead and I put in the search criteria 96 for the index gear option, because I don't want to change my index tooth gear from 96 just to cut this one stone. When I search in this database, I always click the box just to show me designs that have cutting instructions included so that I don't waste time looking at some really neat design where the cutter didn't bother to share the cutting instructions. And finally, if it's a popular shape, more common shape, like I'll just go ahead and select 1,000 designs so that the search basically shows me everything available on one page. So I found this design that I would like to cut. It's called Square Dozen, and it was designed by Robert Strickland. I know Robert and have cut several of his designs before, and they always turned out great. And yes, this is the same Robert Strickland who created GemCAD, which is a computer-aided gemstone design program, and GemRay, which helps predict what a gemstone would look like when you cut it. I think, as I understand it, he created GemCAD for DOS way back. So Robert is definitely one of the legends in the gem cutting field and the gem cut design field. If I cut this stone correctly using the Square Dozen design, this is how it should look from the top, side, and bottom. And here are the cutting instructions that Robert has very selflessly shared with all cutters. Thanks, Robert. You probably know that I'm currently trying to learn all about GemCut Studio, or GCS, which is a computer-aided gemstone design program. So with this square dozen design, the first thing I did was download it from the facetdiagrams.org site onto my computer. And it is a .asc file because that's what GemCAD uses. So GCS can read an ASC file. So after I download it onto my computer in my designs folder in my GCS file, I open the file in GCS and save it again. And when I save it again, GCS converts the new saved version from the .asc file to a .gcs file, which is what GCS uses. Confusing? I hope not. But if so, just watch my tutorial videos on the GCS software and it'll become clear. I have created a playlist in YouTube for GCS tutorials where I'll link all of my GCS tutorials so that you'll have them all in one place. And I'll also link any other GCS tutorials that I find on YouTube. And let me know if I missed any. And here's a rendering from the GCS program on what this stone should look like when I cut it. GCS allows the user to put the color for the stone into the program. Another powerful feature of GCS is the cutting assistant, which allows you to walk through and basically proof cut the design before you actually cut it. It shows you either facet by facet or row by row in the instructions of a computer generated display of how a cube of rough would be transformed into the final gemstone. And I find this very useful because it helps me visualize my cuts before I start. I have made a couple of complete video on using the transfer fixture to set your gemstone into a dop. So I won't cover dopping the stone here. Here's a clickable link to that video if you have any questions on how to use a transfer fixture. Okay, to set our aquamarine into our spindle for the square dozen cut, we want the index to be at 96, and then we want one of the flat sides of our square to be facing down. So that looks about right. And so we'll just tighten up the set screw and we'll be ready to start cutting this piece of aquamarine. Okay, I've finished going over our square dozen aquamarine with my 12M lap, which is about a 1500 grit lap. And there's still one inclusion in the stone. The piece chipped out. You can see when a piece chips, you can see that bright spot right there at the point of my pointer. That's where it chipped out. So I do have to go bring the pavilion down a little bit to make up for that. Let me get one of my macro lenses, my poor man's telescopic lens, so I can show you that a little better. Okay, I put in my 4x magnification, my close-up lens onto the camera. I haven't been using these magnifying lenses very much, but I'm starting to work with them. So you can see right there, much better with magnification, that little chip. So I've got to bring things down a little bit to get rid of that little triangular chip right there. So this is a 4x magnification lens, and this is from my, it's kind of a poor man's magnifying camera lens. You can just use these filters and screw them over your lens. There's a 1, 2, 4, and a 10, or you can screw them all together and get 17 times magnification. So I bought those when I upgraded my video equipment, and I made a video on my video equipment upgrade. And then you can look at, I didn't my video upgrade on a budget, and I just haven't been using these, but I'm getting more and more comfortable with them, and so I'll do more and more magnification with you. They're very inexpensive, and in that video I explain how to get the right size for your camera, and that way you don't have to buy a very expensive macro lens if you want to do photography of your gemstones. But that's what I'm working on now, so I'll go over my stone with the 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap, and then I'll be ready to polish the pavilion. Okay, I'm ready to polish our aquamarine, but I want to make sure, since I had to move the pavilion down, that I have enough rough remaining in the this bottom half, which will actually be the top half of the crown of the stone. So I don't want to polish it and move on unless I know I have enough rough left. So the way you find out if you have enough rough for the crown is you go to the instructions on your gem fastening diagram, and you look at the C/W crown to width ratio. And in these instructions, the C to W is 0.197. So you just measure the width of your stone, and in our case it's 7.5 millimeters. You multiply that by 0.197 and we get 1.4775. Don't forget, you also have to add in your girdle. So I figure a 0.3 girdle, 0.5, somewhere around there. So 0.47 plus 0.3 is 0.77. So about 1.47 plus 0.3 is 1.77. About 1.8 millimeters is what I need. So I set my calipers, my gauge at 1.8, and I just measure the girdle to make sure that I have enough left, and I do. My dot goes down, it starts there, so I have enough left, plenty enough to cut the upper half or table of the stone. So now I'll go ahead and finish polishing the pavilion, and then we'll be ready to cut the table. Okay, I finished cutting the pavilion of our aquamarine. I used a creamway lap from Gearloose to polish it, and I supercharged it with cerium oxide and water in a spray bottle. So now we'll transfer the stone and cut the upper half for the crown. And I've already made a video on using the transfer fixture, so I won't go through the procedures to transfer the stone here. I'll just refer you to that video if you want to see how you transfer a stone. Okay, I just started pre-polishing with our 3K diamond on a bat lap, and I've just finished the first row of tiers. You can see them, the corner tiers. This is with a 3K and this is with the 12M, all the other facets, and we haven't gotten to the table yet. But you can notice the difference between the 3K and even the 12M. They're getting almost look polished with the 3K, but we'll polish afterwards with the creamway. I'm going to try the creamway lap by Gearloose with cerium oxide to polish this after we're done with the 3K diamond on a bat lap. Okay, I finished polishing the upper half of our aquamarine with the creamway lap and cerium oxide. So now I'll set the stone up so we can cut the table, and then we'll be done and ready to put it in the acetone to soak it and get rid of the adhesive, and then we'll weigh it and measure it. Okay, I finished polishing our aquamarine, and now I'll soak it in the acetone and we'll see how much it weighs.
Today I cut a beautiful green-blue aquamarine using Robert Strickland's square dozen design. The stone was already preformed when I bought it, so I saved a few cutting steps, and because the rough was preformed, I doubled my normal yield on cutting. I polished this aquamarine with my creamway lap from Gearloose and cerium oxide, and I will say that the aquamarine cut and polished easily, and the creamway did a great job. As far as the square dozen design goes, I would say that a new cutter should wait until you've cut about a half dozen stones before tackling this design. It's not a complicated design, and it's very fun to cut, very interesting design. But in my personal opinion, a new cutter should cut standard round brilliant, then a square step cut, and maybe a rectangular cut, a couple other cuts. So before tackling this one, I would just recommend it be your 5th or 6th stone. Just my recommendation. But please do cut the square dozen design, and please let me know how it turns out for you.
And as always, happy faceting, everyone.